All right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa, Parvajaka Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parvajaka Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriyet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On the 7th day of October 2020 in SanDiego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. We're in Canto 4, Chapter 26. King Puranjan goes to the forest to hunt, and his queen becomes angry. Text number 22. Paramo nungraho dando Vitteshu prabhunarpitaha Balo naveda tattanvi Bandukrit jamamarshanaha Padamo nugraho dando Vrityeshu prabhunarpitaha Balo naveda tattanvi Bandhukrityamamarshanaha Padamo nugraho dando Vrityeshu prabhunarpitaha Balo naveda tattanvi Bandhukrityamamarshanaha Padamo nugraho dando Vrityeshu bhavanarpitaha Balo naveda tattanvi Bandhukrityamamarshanaha Padamo nugraho dando Vrityeshu bhavanarpitaha Balo naveda tattanvi Bandhukrityamamarshanaha Padamo nugraho dando Vrityeshu bhavanarpitaha Balo naveda tattanvi Bandhukrityamamarshanaha Padamaha Supreme Anugraha Mercy Dandaha Punishment Vrityeshu upon the servants Prabhuna by the master Arpitaha awarded Balaha foolish Na does not Veda no Tat that Tanvi O slender maiden Bandhukrityam the duty of a friend Amarshanaha angry. Translation. So Puranjana is addressing his dear wife. My dear slender maiden, when a master chastises his servant, the servant should accept this as great mercy. One who becomes angry must be very foolish not to know that such is the duty of his friend. Purport. It is said that when a foolish man is instructed in something very nice, he generally cannot accept it. Indeed, he actually becomes angry. Such anger is compared to the poison of a serpent. For when a serpent is fed milk and bananas, its poison actually increases. Instead of becoming merciful or sober, the serpent increases its poisonous venom when fed nice foodstuffs. Similarly, when a fool is instructed, he does not rectify himself, but actually becomes angry. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. So here, in this verse and purport, we are given one of the most essential aspects of devotional service, which is that one takes good instruction from a superior person and is grateful for it, rather than becoming angry or rejecting it. That willingness to admit one's failings and ignorance and take instruction from a real authority is a prerequisite for entering into the house of Bhakti, as Prabhupada so poetically puts it. However, in this situation we have now, we have a perverted reflection of that. Because who is Puranjan? He's a conditioned soul. And he's gone out, he's gone from, let's say he went from the mode of passion into the mode of ignorance. And he went into the forest and he's killing all these animals and he's angry. And in doing that, he ignored his wife and his, intelligence. And she became very depressed, so much so that she's lying on the ground like some kind of mendicant or something. She's a queen, So now Puranjan comes back, he takes a bath, a shower, takes a bath, and he takes nice food stuff, he takes rest. And so now he's all enlivened for what? Sense gratification. Where's his wife? He's concerned. So he realizes when he sees her that she's very upset with him. So what does he do? Now he's flattering her. You could say this first line, Parama Anugraha, supreme mercy. Well, what do we would address that toward Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, the spiritual master, the devotees. Not your material intelligence, you see what I'm saying? Material intelligence we're trying to purify and trying to control the lower self by the higher self. Even the intelligence is right near the soul. The soul is meant to be superior and control the lower self, as described so nicely in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the end. So there's this whole scene now that develops, and he's placing himself as the humble servant of his wife, so to pacify her, get into good graces again, and then, as we'll see, to enjoy sense gratification, and that goes on. But I wanted to refer to, because this whole, looking again back at the whole meaning of the allegory, we see that this Puranjan is being controlled by his materialistic intelligence, and he's an archetype of a conditioned soul who really doesn't know what's what. You grow up and you identify with your body and your mind and your family and all of the different things. You have upadis, all of these upadis, these designations which we embrace on ourselves because we have no idea who we really are. Blind leading the blind. If we don't come in contact with real knowledge in the form of the Shastra or the Shastra representatives, the gurus, sadhus, then we're really helpless here. We're in this blind well. And so, where do we aspire? What do we look for? Well, our senses are telling us, giving us so much, messages. Our mind, materialistic mind, intelligence are giving, and so the soul is being dragged around, and aspires for this, aspires for that, places his energy in various kinds of gross and subtle sense gratification, and ultimately defeated. Parabhavastavada bodhajato. And Rishabde's very important instructions to his sons. And this is defeat for the living entity. When you simply get, it's called karmatmaka, when the mind is filled with all of these fruitive desires, and that's what's impelling you. You're really a servant of the conditioned mind, and like that. So that's what's going on in this allegory, and Prabhupada is drawing so many wonderful instructions from it, and giving us the Krishna conscious perspective on it. So what I wanted to do, if you'll allow me, is to refer to what came to mind. I was reading this and thinking, well, what Shastra can I quote? And this verse came to mind from the Mukundamala Stotra, which Srila Prabhupada really liked. In fact, he started translating that and gave some wonderful purports for I think the first 12 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a few less, but wonderful long purports, some of which were published in the BTG. But this is not one of those. I'm going to refer to it. This verse I memorized long ago. Let's see if I can come. Here it is. Andasyame, this is verse 36 of Mukundamala Stotra. Now this, just a little history on how this book came to be, part of the BBT canon. In 1989, we had finished the Bhagavatam. We meaning myself, Vidyananda Maharaj, Gopi Pranadadu, and myself as an editor. And so, the BBT, we had this whole production line, we had what are we going to do next? So we're looking for some, you were there, not in the meeting, but you were in Miami at the time. This was in Miami, Florida. So we had a meeting, and I suggested that first thing we do is complete the books that Prabhupada started but never finished. We know those for sure that he was enthusiastic about them. And the first one was the Mukundamala Stotra, and then the Narada Bhakti Sutra. The Narada Bhakti Sutra was actually being read. It was picked up by the devotees in 26 Second Avenue. And they were reading it. They were reading all kinds of books, and they would bring them to Prabhupada. Is this bona fide? No. But when they brought the Narada Sutra, Bhakti Sutra, said, yes, this is a very nice book. So Satsu Goswami, who was I guess, the second most literary of the bunch. There was, of course, Hayagriva was an editor, but he was the one who brought it to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada took it with him when he went to San Francisco in January of '67, and at that time he was writing TLC, the Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He was dictating, no diacritics. Just a note, not be critical, but that Shivasati Go Bhakta Vrinda, this comes from Vishnu Jan, isn't it? Isn't you heard of Vishnu Jan, a great kirtaniya, was leading that. Shivasati, but it's long as Shivasati. I think he's singing it that way. There were no diacritics in the TLC. They didn't have any in the first one, published in 1968. So anyway, Prabhupada was working on that, but he agreed to also do the Narada Bhakti Sutra. And so the first of 10, 11 of those he did beautifully, with purpose. But then he wrote to Satsuru Maharaj and said, well, the teachings in the Narada Bhakti Sutra are pretty close to what we have in the TLC, the same teachings. So let me finish that first and I'll get back to it. He never resumed the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Nor did he resume the Mukundamala, which he began in India. But, so those two I suggested, well, we should complete those at first. The Mukundamala Stotra and the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Did you want to say something? This was before he started the Bhagavatam. I don't know if he before America. He wrote it in India. Yeah, and even you look in those Delhi Bhagavatams, he listed that as an other book by the same author, even though he had just done a portion of it. Yeah, so he liked it, and it was read and published by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the edition that he was reading. So anyway, this is verse 36, and how do we complete it? Satsuru Maharaj and Gopi Pranadu they teamed up on finishing the translation and the purport. So here's this verse. I thought it was very pertinent to what we're reading. Andasya medita viveka mahadanasya chaurai pabo balabad indriya nama dehai mohand kupakahare vinipatatasya devesha dehi kapanasya karavalambam. O Lord, the powerful thieves of my senses have blinded me by stealing my most precious possession, my discrimination. And they have thrown me deep into the pitch-dark well of delusion. Please, O Lord of Lords, extend your hand and save this wretched soul. Very dramatic, wonderful verse. Now, I'll just read this short purport here because it's a very good instruction and it's exactly pertinent what we're discussing. In text, so he points out in text 20, 26, 31, and 34, King Kulasheshwar has instructed his different senses to serve the Lord. If you read the writings of the Goswami, you'll see they sometimes instruct their tongue to chant the holy name, the mind to be fixed, like you can do that. But now these same senses have apparently dragged him down into the well of delusion. Of course, the king is a liberated pure devotee of the Lord, and he is simply taking the role of a fallen conditioned soul for our instruction. But still, one might question why Kulashekar has first encouraged us with descriptions of proper sensory engagement in the Lord's service, and then discouraged us with this dreary picture of uncontrolled senses casting the hapless soul into the well of delusion. The answer is that King Kulashekar is simply giving us a realistic picture of the alternatives faced by the living being in the clutches of the material energy, and that's exactly what the Bhagavatam is doing. It's longer, but it's the same idea. Is that there, and we find great devotees like Prahlad and others also offering prayers like this, and taking the role of the conditioned soul. We need a sober view of Maya's powers if we hope to extricate ourselves. As the Ishopanishad 11 states, Vidyam cha yas tadvedo bhayam saha avidyam mrityam tirtva vidyam mrityamashnyate. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Because Maya is very tricky. She can present something, unless we really understand what's going on, then we can get fooled. The right choice for human beings is vidya, or transcendental knowledge, with restricted sense enjoyment. We are taught about avidya so that we will be fully aware of its dire consequences. Then we can strongly reject it and engage our mind and senses wholeheartedly in the devotional service to Krishna. As Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita 6.5, a man must elevate himself by his own mind, not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well. So we're seeing how in Puranjan, his intelligence in this case, part of the mind, is is his enemy, and it's bewildered him. Okay. How to use all of one's faculties in Krishna's service was exemplified by Maharaj Ambarish. Now, I'm not going to read the translation of this whole, but he first fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, then his words he used, his hands for cleansing, his nose for smelling the fragrance of the tulsi manjaris on the Lord, like that. Everything was, and his desires, fulfilling desires of the Lord. He was perfectly fixed. In spite of warnings, we follow the wanton dictates of our senses. If despite warnings we follow the wanton dictates of our senses, those senses will lead us into the ditch of deep illusion, just as an unreined horse might drag a chariot into a ditch. If this happens, I'm sorry? Oh, what is wanton? Wanton means uncontrolled. They have a mind of their own. That's commonly used for people who are just lascivious, following their senses very unrestrictedly. If this happens, if the chariot of our body, is dragged by the horse of the unreined horses, if this happens, if we fall deep into sinful life, then our only recourse is to call sincerely upon the Supreme Lord to extricate us. King Kulashekar's metaphor is not imaginary, for in India, a person will sometimes accidentally fall into a dry, overgrown well known as an andakupa, or blind well. Have you experienced that? But you know that it happens. Once at the bottom of the well, if he survives the fall, he cannot possibly get out by himself. You hope someone comes. You end up screaming as long as you can. Similarly, we cannot extricate ourselves from the deep well of material life unless we grab the rope of mercy lowered by Krishna or his representative. As Srila Rupa Goswami prays in his Stavamala, and this is a verse you've heard before, I've quoted, Manasijapani dushte labdapatosmi dushte. Alas, I've fallen into the deep, dark, filthy well of samsara in which the viper of sex desire dwells. O invincible Lord, the rope of devotional service is the cause of universal protection and is expert at delivering the fallen souls. Please place that rope in my hand. I offer my respectful obeisances to you. In a similar mood, now this is Raghunath Das Goswami's Manak Shiksha. In a similar mood, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami says the following in the 5th verse of his Manak Shiksha, Instructions to the Mind. Achat cheshta kashta padavikata pasala bidiha. It goes on. It's long. We have a little shorter time. The highwaymen of lust and his accomplices, greed, etc., have waylaid me and bound my neck with the horrible ropes of sinful activities. O mind, please scream out for help. Now, some translations, this Vartma Bhagane, is please scream out for the help from the devotees of the Lord. Yeah, Baka Bid, the devotees of the killer of Baka. Or crying, O Krishna, O killer of Baka, I am on the verge of death. If you do this, then Krishna will certainly save me. The last paragraph. To be aware of danger is itself a blessing. So much of the books are warning us of the dangers of uncontrolled senses. To be aware of danger is itself a blessing. If we see the disaster of death and rebirth approaching, we will naturally call out to Krishna for help. But if we remain in ignorance, we will foolishly continue trying to enjoy sense pleasure, not recognizing that sense gratification implicates us in repeated birth and death. However, once we begin sincerely calling on Krishna in full awareness that we are in mortal danger and that he is our only protector, we are already saved. Once we actually call. Very nice instruction. So this is exactly related to what we're reading. Because Puranjan is in the deep, dark well of ignorance. And instead of, getting good instruction and controlling his senses and trying to get out of the well, he's a conditioned soul. That's the whole allegory. And he's praying, he's very praying, I'm the servant. I'm your servant, O material intelligence. Please show me your mercy. And the mercy is that she forgives him and smiles and she gets all dressed up, and they have sex. And that's all, thank you, I'm forgiven now. And he considered himself successful. In subsequent verses we're going to read, because I looked ahead a little bit, how he just got completely bewildered, and the days of his life went, and he got old and died, and then the whole enterprise becomes destroyed. And the soul, the conditioned soul, is shocked, into at the time of death. We read about a Jamil that's graphically described how he felt, how terrified he was when the Yamadutas came, So the whole idea is that we as devotees, we have been blessed with the instruction, good instruction in abundantly, of the dangers of simply staying in the clutches of the material energy. And we've been given the alternative, logically presented, and the practical method by which we can experience it. This is what's so important. If we just had the books and there was no society and there were no exemplars, we couldn't make it happen. You know what I mean? It wouldn't happen for us. Prabhupada books are so great, but there needs to be a way in which you can activate it. It says chant Hare Krishna. Well, how do I chant Hare Krishna? Well, show me how. Give me an example. Like that. So that's what the society is all about. And the more that we take advantage by sincerely, deciding. You have to make a sankalpa. Sankalpa is like a strong vow and will. I will do this, and stick to it. And then you can feel the blessings. And the first one is that your mind, can start to become your friend. If you're always hearing Krishna Katha and you're chanting and you're preaching and you're doing the right thing, then the memories will come up of Krishna's pastimes. Or you lead, you spend decades in memories of service, of pilgrimages, of places you go to. I was, by the way, I don't know if everyone saw this, but there's now this virtual Navadvip Dham Parikrama going to happen. Like the biggest Zoom is going to happen, right? On the 9th it's going to start. And our very own Vijenjananda Prabhu was one of the speakers. Because he spent... No, I'm just saying, it's rare. There's only about a dozen of them, and you're one of them. So I signed up how much time I'll actually be able to spend on it. But I'm sure it's going to be recorded and everything, yeah. So that's a great opportunity, I remember every time we, I kind of added this in. I don't know if no one's objected in the Premajvani Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Sometimes Jagannath, So as soon as I say that, I remember my one trip to Jagannath Puri. It was going back to 1982, I think it was. Yeah. And I remember the Gambhir, and I was chanting this Gauranga Stavakalpa Vriksha by that, and the other things, time by the ocean. I mean, it's a long time ago, but still, it's all. I mean, that's what it's for. That's you go on these pilgrimages, and it gives you a strong impression. It's the actual place, and it's indelible, hopefully. Haribol, Dharma. We missed you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Nice to see you. So here, this prayer, which is memorable, it doesn't take much. It's really pertinent for all of us. I mean, I could relate to this, that the senses. There's another one that comes to mind, where there's one that were actually the Undasimated, the one from Mukundamala, about how the thieves of the senses steal your most precious possession, your discrimination, which is part of the intelligence. What differentiates it from the animals? The animals just follow the senses. They're programmed in. It's instinct. Instinct. It's the super soul telling them what to do. But they don't have they can't sit there quietly. And say, "Oh, Prabhu, that's the cat section." No, it doesn't work like that. They may wander in, but they don't have the ability to understand. And for the most part, human beings don't either. In this age anyway. They're Dvipada Pashu, right? Two-legged animals, instead of four-leggers, they get two of them are hands, but they're animalistic. You quote it, So, how to get out of that? It's really a tragedy. The spirit soul, originally at the feet of Krishna, and then somehow we've turned away and we've been conditioned for eons and eons, and then you get a chance. By the grace of Krishna and his representatives, the Hare Krishna mantra is here, Lord Chaitanya, everything, and then it's wonderful. The movement continues to grow, and it's thousands and thousands, but there's billions who aren't taking advantage. And even I'm sure you find many people who have never heard of us, right? There's a lot after all these years, So we can plug in. It's almost like we can plug into the current. And we can take advantage for ourselves. We should have two lines, just like Lord Chaitanya. If you're very, very, very beginning of the CC, there's something called the Mangalacharan. these verses, 14 verses or so that describe the subject matter. It gives the Panchatattva mantras, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and then gives the reasons, both internal and external, for Lord Chaitanya's advent. And that's kind of a model also for us, for our prosecution of devotional service. The first one, starting with the ones just about Lord Chaitanya, there was a verse that described that he's God, that he's Krishna. Yadadvaitam Brahmo Panashaditadapyasidhanabha, which is the foundation of everything we do. That Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, and that his activities and his teachings should be embraced, especially for this age. It's perfectly suited for us. And then it gives it the internal and external reasons. I won't get into all the Sanskrit. But it starts with the external reason, which is why we're sitting here. The external reason is to spread the truth of Krishna consciousness, chiefly through Sankirtan, through congregational chanting. But Krishna had his own reasons for coming, internal reasons, his own desires. And that's described how he was in the spiritual world. It's described, there's even a painting of it where he's seeing his own reflection. He presents it in the floor, but I think it's in a pillar. But anyways, everything's polished, so he's seeing his own reflection. He's attracted to his own beauty. He says, who has beauty as great as that, I really want to appreciate it from Radharani's point of view. I can't do it, because her love means that she appreciates his quality, his beauty, etc., more than anyone else. So that's the first internal reason. The first internal reason is to understand the glory of her love for him, and to understand his own qualities through the inimitable lens of her love, if you will. And then to understand the pleasure she's experiencing from loving him and being loved by him. All of those were impossible to experience in the spiritual world, in the identity. So he came as Lord Chaitanya. So now, how does that pertain to us? Well, our internal reason is for practicing Krishna consciousness. We want to experience the bliss of prema bhakti. We want to experience the freedom from all of this control of material energy. I want to go back to God. I want liberation. Okay, so of course, we understand pretty quick that wanting liberation is a byproduct, But still, so much of Prabhupada's preaching, because bringing people from the point of understanding that we're in the deep well, that we're faced with old age, disease, and death, again and again and again and again and again, not just once, and that this is a extreme decrease and an eclipse of the soul's real nature as Satchidananda. So once we understand that, we should aspire to become Krishna conscious for our own reasons. But soon after you join, sometimes the first day when they send you out on Sankirtan or the book distribution, I don't know if that happened to you, but some devotees, the first day, like to distribute books, back to Bill. Yeah, I'll do it, 2 months. And that was 48 years later, and he's still 42 years later. So the point, the idea is that you understand that the real bliss comes from pleasing the spiritual master and pleasing Lord Chaitanya. And what do they want most? For you to be an agent to give Krishna consciousness to others. So those two lines makes for a healthy, bhakta and das and dasi in Krishna consciousness. To really be serious about your own sadhana for advancing yourself, and also, not mutually exclusive, to become strong, to be able to give Krishna consciousness to others, and to be determined to do that as far as possible, because that's what Krishna wants most. That's what pleases him most, as he says in Bhagavad Gita. So they all mesh, you see. But none of that is possible until we understand ourselves to be spirit souls, understand to be part and parcel of Krishna. Our natural state is being the servants of Krishna, and to decide to take up the process by which we can realize that, not just theoretically, from gyan to vigyan, So all of that is nicely expressed here. I mean, these prayers, we can embrace them and as our own. I could relate to this as soon as I read it. The senses, you let them go, you go down one sense, and it takes away your discrimination. What have I been thinking about? I'm not thinking of Krishna. I'm getting involved in something else, So that's the Balabi, the powerful senses, and that includes the internal sense, the mind, They can steal away our actual discrimination and cast us down into this blind well of illusion. And so knowing that and reading the Bhagavad Gita, we are warned, and that should strengthen our determination to no longer obey the demands of the lust, anger, greed, and so forth. And that's this verse. I can't say for sure, but since I was the editor for this book, I may have suggested this verse. This is Manasija Panijishte, because anyone who knows I put it into a poem is one of my favorites, because it was exactly pertinent. So I think, but anyway, that be that as it may. This is all of our acharyas, Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Das, and they give us examples of this, and we can say, oh, this perfectly expresses what I'm feeling. Let me memorize it. Let me at least read it in front of the deities. Let me meditate on it and embrace it. So that's what I regard as the larger, when you step back and you see this allegory. This is an example of all of us, this Puranjan. He's the embodied soul, he's got the senses there, he's got his intelligence, and that's his field of enjoyment. And when it becomes a little bit compromised, oh my God, I better pray to my intelligence, better get it back going good, so everything's fine for my sense gratification. But that's a self-defeating. That's the soul willingly drinking poison in that song. Hari Hari Vipale, I've wasted my life fruitlessly. Vipale means without fruit. I'm thinking I'm getting all these fruits and I'm enjoying, I'm eating, but the real fruit of liberation from birth and death and going back to Godhead is inconceivable. You don't know anything about it. So we know something about it. We cannot go back to, we can if we really want to, and we've seen the history. It's possible to become covered up again, sometimes amazingly, strongly covered up, because the faith. See, the faith is the key. How do we get faith in this process? After all, Krishna is invisible. I can't see the soul. I can't see Krishna. What I can see is all these objects of the senses who are alluring me. So for most people, you guys are just dreaming, and they have, like we heard the questioner yesterday. Yeah, religion, it's been through the history. It's just people get controlled by this, imagining some being in the clouds and controlling things. This is the age of science. What are you guys talking about religion? In other words, this is all ways in which Maya works. The scientists, material scientists, they don't have a clue. They think they know what's going on, right? But actually, they're in complete darkness. The real scientists realize that and understand. We've just on the shore of the ocean of knowledge. So it's not easy to keep our focus on that which is, we may be a little bit in Maya, we're not feeling any ecstasy, and there's so many things going on, and we have so many messages coming from our own brain and from others. If we take to say, well, you got to get it together. You can't spend all your time chanting and doing this. This is a waste of time. Whatever it is, people have come and they've left this movement, and so it's incumbent upon us to be strict in our sadhana. Sadhu Sangha, what was I reading yesterday? I forget the Sanskrit, but it's a theme that comes up again and again. And that is, associate with devotees and give up bad association. Duk Sangam. What is that? Tato Duk Sangam Utsurja Satsu Sajjeta Buddhiman Santa Evasya Chindanti Manovyasaga Muktibi. This is a very important verse. This is in the in the Uddhava Gita. Krishna speaks it. After the Ila Gita.
Also, Prabhupada has a purport verse.
Yes, it comes up in that first chapter, I believe. Yeah, the Ila Gita. I mean, it's the same theme. Ila is Pururava. Pururava describes how he got completely bewildered by Urvasi. Not just for a few months, for like lifetimes practically. This is a heavenly damsel, the most beautiful, sent down and lured him. And he was, she eventually abandoned him and went back, and he just couldn't stop thinking about her, and then and somehow he was able to go, and plead, said, okay, once a year you could come, we can have a relationship. He's completely bewildered. So finally, by the 11th canto, he's disgusted. And Krishna gives this Ila Gita, which is a song of renunciation. It's pretty heavy, I've spent so many years serving the lips of Urvasi, there's a bag full of stool and blood. What am I doing? He's really serious. He rejects that. And after that, Ila Gita, I'll show you where it is if you're interested. It's good, brahmacharya life. Krishna says, Toto, therefore, dutsangam utsrija. You have to throw away, with great determination, bad association. And what is that bad association? Non-devotees, and those who are too much attached to women, like that. But you have to associate. And satsu sajjeta buddhiman, be intelligent, associate with devotees, real devotees, especially pure devotees. What's the result? Well, one of the first results is santa evasya chinnandi manovyasaga muktibi. With their words act like swords, knives, to cut out your illusion. What is it? Santa evasya chinnati manovyasangam. Manovyasangam. Now in this case, sangam means, of course, association, but it also means attachments. So here it's that the deeply rooted material attachments in our mind need these strong words. Prabhupada's books. You read Prabhupada's books and he's chopping away. Sometimes it's painful to read them. Because, oh my God, he's describing me here. Again and again. But we need that. We need that. That's someone once asked Prabhupada, can we just, someone take initiation just by reading your books and becoming? No, you need to have an actual living guru. Why? Because they can pull your ear. In other words, they can get on your case, and through the chastisement, which is what, we're going back to the verse we're reading, right? Is that the real disciple is thankful for that chastisement and takes it as a great blessing, because that's what we need. Our mind is trying to convince us this and that, and the guru, who we respect and we love, that's why it says attraction for the lotus feet of the guru is the best means of advancement. Because if you're ready to take, a really strong chastisement from someone who you highly respect and who you have great affection for. So that's why it's important to attend the programs and also to develop that affection through service. You're serving the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and you're taking the blessings through the books and everything else. There's a reciprocation, loving exchange. So anyway, that's what I'm getting from this. It's calling so many references to mind. What are the lessons from this allegory? Is that we shouldn't be like Puranjan. We are Puranjan in our conditioned state, but we should try to come out of that and aspire, direct our aspirations in the right direction. What is our asha? The asha is a neutral term. It means your aspiration. In the 16th chapter, we got asha, pasha, shata, bandha. The demons are bound by these ropes of material aspirations, thousands of them, even to the point of death. They think there's no other possible reason for living than to enjoy the senses till the point of death. So we're directly 180 degrees different from that. No, live a healthy life, wholesome life, and use your senses and your mind, connect to Krishna, following the instructions. And then that's the rope. That process of devotion is the rope which we can hang on to, and the mercy of Krishna and pull us right out. Okay, we're a little over time, but yes, Prabhu.
Got a couple of contributions from the our
virtual
audience.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Tapas Prabhu said, Hare Krishna, thank you, Your Grace, Dravida Prabhu, for your morning association. This inspires me for bhakti. And Prometheus also has listened again, and he says, Hare Krishna, please accept my respects.
Hare Krishna.
And he has a question. Do you see any contradictions or paradoxes in your philosophical framework? I'm going to read it slow because it's kind of packed.
Okay.
You see any contradictions or paradoxes in your philosophical framework? On the one hand, we're told of our extreme degradation, ignorance, vices, and limitations. Juxtaposed to this is the understanding that the Vedas are 100% correct, all resting on the interpretations of one individual, Abhay Charande. If this premise is accepted, we are then expected to live in an epistemological echo chamber in which, according to the Nectar devotion, all activities, thoughts, and words should be in line with the approved scripture.
Yeah. Abhay Charande, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And when it's epistemological world we live in, that's the world of the knowledge that we get from Srila Prabhupada's books. But Srila Prabhupada, from the beginning of his presentation of, say, Bhagavad Gita as it is, he's making it clear that he is following the line, the disciplic line, the knowledge is coming down from Krishna to Brahma, from Brahma to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, and Vyasa down all the way, and that he's simply repeating. Now he's presenting it to us in a form that we can understand, the first and foremostly in the English language, right? And so these are tried and true practices. It's not that it's all theoretical. These great saints that have come down, including our, more recently with Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gokishore Das Babaji, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada, and the present acharyas, they have experienced. They're experienced. Now, are we going to say, well, on the basis of my admittedly limited knowledge, but my direct experience, it's all just a big dream. These towering intellects, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, many of whom displayed, as Srila Prabhupada did, incredible renunciation, austerities, and yet, from those who directly experienced Srila Prabhupada's life, were blissful, were ensuring us that Krishna is real, and this is exactly what is said. We're placing our faith in them rather than in our own imperfect senses. And this epistemological world that's been created by many others with imperfect senses. That's the andaya tandaya rupa niyamana that Prahlad Maharaj speaks about. So the answer is, it's not just Srila Prabhupada's interpretation. It's his channeling, if you can reclaim that word from its misuse. Channeling. He's a medium, a transparent medium, as he would use, for the teachings, infallible teachings that are coming down and beginning with Krishna himself. This was the whole point of his presenting the Bhagavad Gita as it is. He explains at the beginning, in the preface. A woman asked me to recommend a Bhagavad Gita, and I couldn't really recommend one because they're all distorted they're not written by devotees. So he wanted to present it, not hiding Krishna, but bringing Krishna to the forefront, which is the whole point of the Bhagavad Gita. So we reject this assessment of the presentation or the epistemological world we're living in, the world of knowledge and practice. So that it's and this idea that somehow Prabhupada set up this whole society to exploit his followers is absolute nonsense. He showed by his example about undergoing austerities, and even in this old age, when he could have just sat down. I was just giving the description of the Detroit temple. It was a very, it was a mansion. He could have said, "Oh, now finally I got my mansion. I'll sit here and I can have everyone will just serve me." No, he arranged for it to be purchased at a very low price, and then he flew off to some other thing. And just flying at that age, at my age, even before. I don't like to fly. Do you like to fly? For hours and hours and hours. That alone, what to speak, So it's a complete misapprehension. Is that that Srila Prabhupada gave us a genuine system, and we can experience more and more of its benefits, and when we strictly observe it. And yes, it's difficult because we're conditioned so much, but it's possible. Lord Chaitanya made it possible even for us to experience the untold, amazing, massive benefits of Krishna consciousness bhakti. Anything to add?
So that's a no, that we don't see any contradiction to we're fallen and the Vedas are perfect.
No,
that was how it's
there's no. Yeah, I'm sorry. There's no contradiction. The Vedas understand that we're fallen, and they're presenting to us, not the Vedas, but all of the Vedic literature Srila Prabhupada has given, a means by which we can become unfallen. We can get up off the mat, or we can get out of the well. So it's not, you know. And anyway, you know, never troubled me. Hare Krishna. Yes, Vijay goes in. Then I have to get to work.
You mentioned how
It's on.
if someone gets Prabhupada's books, is he initiated just by reading the books? Said no. But there's another instance where devotees say, well, Prabhupada, so many people are getting your books, but they may not meet you or see. So can they still be delivered?
I'm sorry, I lost that. Say it again.
Because you mentioned how someone said, well, Prabhupada, they're getting your what did you say?
Instruction?
They're reading your books, but is that good enough? And Prabhupada said no. Right?
Yeah, there has to be a person initiation. Yeah.
So another time, devotee asked Prabhupada that people are getting your books, but they may never see devotees. Is that still good enough for them to go back to Godhead?
Uh-huh.
And Prabhupada said yes. If they accept this knowledge as truth, then yes.
Yeah, I guess the answer is that for that rare soul, and I know there's some. I mean, I heard about there was a whole yatra that developed in Russia, and one guy read a book and he started chanting and he shared it, and you know, and that happened. And someone finally came, you know, and said, "Well, what's going on here? Nobody ever came here." So it can happen. I guess the point is, if the rare soul can actually start following strictly, and then he's going to get the blessing of Krishna. You can go back to who can say Krishna do anything he wants, but by and large, in order to over time stay on the path, you need guidance from souls who are pure, and to accept, and that whole initiation, which is taking vows and getting a new name, a new identity, all of that is helps to fix you in the line, and so that's the overwhelming truth. Did you want to add to that? Are we good? Okay. I think we should adjourn. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.